March 6, 1945, Cologne, Germany. 21-year-old Corporal Clarence Smoyer from Allentown, Pennsylvania, peers through the gun sight of his M26 Pershing tank. In the next 10 seconds, he will fire the two most famous shots in American armored warfare history. Combat cameramen positioned in nearby buildings will capture every frame. The footage will become some of the most viewed tank combat film ever recorded. For 3 years, American tank crews have been climbing into machines they know are inferior, accepting death as the likely outcome when facing German armor. The 90mm gun Smoyer is about to fire represents something tank crews have desperately needed since North Africa, a fighting chance. In the shadow of Cologne's 700-year-old cathedral, with cameras rolling and a German Panther tank 110 meters away, Clarence Smoyer is about to change the narrative of armored warfare forever. But to understand what happens in those 10 seconds, we must first understand how Cologne became a city of ashes. To understand the Cologne that American soldiers find in March 1945, we must go back 3 years, May 30th, 1942. Just past midnight, 1,047 British bombers converge on a single German city in 90 minutes. Operation Millennium, the largest air raid in history to that point. Willy Weihrauch, a teenage Volkssturm soldier, huddles in a bunker as the world explodes. The breathless Volkssturm members were thrown to the concrete floor by the blast. The steel doors were ripped from their frames. The pain from the air pressure was excruciating. The raid lasts 60 minutes. Between 469 and 488 Germans die. 54,000 buildings are damaged, 16,000 completely destroyed. But Cologne survives. The wide boulevards prevent fire from spreading. A firestorm does not develop. For the next 3 years, 268 more raids follow. By March 1945, 75% of Cologne's buildings are rubble. 20,000 citizens lie dead. Of the pre-war population of 800,000, perhaps 40,000 remain. Many of them former forced laborers hiding in basements waiting for the Americans. A city that once stood as the Rhineland's proudest metropolis now exists as ruins dominated by a single structure, the cathedral, its twin spires rising like a gravestone. There is nothing left worth defending. And yet, Adolf Hitler's order comes. Defend Cologne to the last cartridge. Früh März 1945. Es geht alles vorüber, es geht alles vorbei, auch Adolf Hitler mit seiner Partei. It will all be over, it will all be past. Also Adolf Hitler with his party. The rhyme whispers through Cologne's basements. The people know the war is lost. On March 1st, Gauleiter Josef Grohe orders evacuation of all non-combatants. 4 days later, after German pioneers blow the Hohenzollern Bridge, Grohe climbs into a boat and flees across the Rhine. Nazi offices burn files. Brown uniforms with swastikas are tossed from windows. Party banners disappear. When the Americans arrive, they will find no Nazis, only innocent victims. But tens of thousands cannot flee. They huddle in basements and bunkers, waiting for the end. Defending them are remnants of the 363rd Volksgrenadier Division and elements of 2 Panzer divisions, approximately 2 regiments against the might of the US First Army. Supporting them, the Volkssturm, old men and teenage boys with obsolete rifles and a handful of ammunition. On March 2nd, 3 days before the American assault, the RAF conducts one final devastating raid. When the droning fades, Willy Weihrauch stares at the bunker floor, wanting only an end to the torment. He grasps his Volkssturm armband and tears it from his jacket. Tossing it to the floor, he runs through ruins toward home. His service as one of Hitler's soldiers has ended, but not all make that choice. Oberleutnant Wilhelm Bartelborth, commanding a Panther tank, will fight because that is what professional soldiers do. 18-year-old Gustav Schäfer in a Panzer Mark IV will fight because he has received orders. They do not know they are about to face cameras that will make them famous. They only know the bridge behind them will be blown, trapping them. And when the Americans come, they will stand and fight. At 7 a.m. on Monday, March the 5th, 1945, the American 3rd Armored Division, the Spearhead Division, launches its final advance. Leading the attack, the tanks of Colonel Leander Doan's Task Force X. 45 tanks, including 2 brand new M26 Pershing heavy tanks. The Pershings are important. For 3 years, American crews have fought in Shermans they knew were inferior. Sherman crews call their tanks Ronsons, the lighter that lights first time every time, because they burn so easily. A Tiger can kill a Sherman from 1,000 yards, while the Sherman cannot hurt a Tiger until closing to 300. The Pershing changes that equation. Weighing 46 tons with powerful 90mm guns, it is the first American answer to German heavy armor. One Pershing, designated Eagle 7, is commanded by Sergeant Bob Early. His gunner, 21-year-old Clarence Smoyer from Pennsylvania. Accompanying the tankers are combat cameramen, Staff Sergeant Jim Bates, Leon Rosamond, Fred Ramage, Clarence Void Garrell. Armed only with cameras, they will document some of the most famous footage of World War II. The advance begins at Pulheim at 10 a.m. Infantry clears houses along the route. Tough, dangerous work. The advance is marked by columns of disarmed German soldiers marching westward, hands high, into prisoner cages. By mid-afternoon, the Venloer Strasse leading to city centre is reached. By day's end, westernmost suburbs are cleared. Those twin cathedral spires are finally in sight. US forces hold for the night, regrouping for the sterner test ahead. Citizens cowering in cellars meet the approaching battle with mixed fear and relief. As one resident puts it, an end with terror is preferable to terror without end. Late on March the 5th, 18-year-old Gustav Schaefer arrives at the Rhine's eastern bank after a hellish journey under air attack. His unit, Panzer Brigade 106, has travelled from southwest Germany. Then they told us straight out, Schaefer recalls, tomorrow morning you're going to Cologne on a mission. Also preparing, Oberleutnant Wilhelm Bartelborth commanding a Panther tank, an experienced commander with the Iron Cross, a professional who knows his duty. Shortly before 10 a.m. on March the 6th, Schaefer receives the order. We drove 3 tanks right over the Hohenzollern Bridge. An officer told us to drive further into the city. We went westwards, passing the cathedral, until we came to an intersection. The intersection is the Kaiser Wilhelm Ring. On the other side, the American Pershing. We went too far and came under fire, Schaefer remembers. The main gun got stuck. The turret was wedged. Under fire from Smoyer's Pershing, Schaefer's Mark IV reverses behind a building. The Americans slam armor-piercing rounds into the structure. Debris collapses onto the Panzer, blocking its turret. Sergeant Rolf Militzer and Gustav Schaefer abandon their tank, running to shelter in a nearby hotel basement with frightened civilians. The commander said, "We can't go back anyway. Get out," Schaefer recalls. "Civilians called us in. If German authorities catch them, it will be desertion. The penalty, death. But at this moment, the world explodes. An enormous detonation shakes the city. The Hohenzollern Bridge, the last escape route, is blown by German pioneers. There is now no way out. In the almost deserted city, a civilian Opel comes racing into view. Grocer Michael Delling drives, with his employee 27-year-old Katharina Esser in the passenger seat. They are trying to reach the bridge. They do not know that minutes earlier, the bridge was destroyed. They drive straight between the American Pershing and the German Mark IV. Tense, nerves stretched tight, both Clarence Smoyer and Gustav Schaefer open up with machine guns. "I didn't shoot the car on purpose," Schaefer recalls. "All of a sudden she was driving through my firing line. When I released the trigger, it was already too late." Smoyer carries the same doubt for 70 years. "If I knew it was a lady there, I would not have intentionally shot her. I hope I wasn't the one that did harm." Riddled by fire, the Opel stops. Michael Delling is dead at the wheel. Katharina Esser is mortally wounded beside him. Her sister Anna returns after the war. "When I came here, I wanted to know about my sister. Then I got the worst message I ever got. I can't even talk about it today." A resident later testifies, "I watched as the car was fired upon. The employee was then run over by the tank. Later on, only fragments, a hand, feet, some body parts, were found. Within family circles, rumor says love might have been the reason." Her fiancé was supposedly waiting on the other side. Clarence Smoyer and Gustav Schaefer will wonder for the rest of their lives whether they killed Katharina Esser. Neither will ever know for certain. On the morning of March 6th, the American column splits. One group, 4 Shermans led by Pershing Eagle 7 takes the Sobelratherstrasse. A second group, including Lieutenant Karl Kellner's Sherman 76, continues along the Venloer Strasse. The camera team split. Jim Bates and Leon Rosamond follow Early's Pershing. Clarence Garrell and Fred Ramage follow Kellner's Shermans. 26-year-old Karl Kellner from Wisconsin has been a tank commander for exactly 8 days. He graduated high school before the war, worked in his brother's grocery store. At 21, he was drafted. After being wounded in 1944, he returned to duty. This morning will be his last. All seems well until Kellner's group emerges near the cathedral. Destroyed buildings block advance. Garrell films as a bulldozer is called in. He doesn't know Oberleutnant Wilhelm Bartelborth's Panther is hidden in a railway tunnel 340 meters away. Bartelborth is waiting. A 75mm armor-piercing shell slams into Kellner's Sherman, probably killing driver Julian Patrick and assistant gunner Curtis Spear outright. 7 seconds later, a second shell hits. As Garrell films, Kellner and Corporal John DeRiggy emerge from the smoking turret. Kellner's left leg has been lost in the explosion. He makes it a few yards behind the tank before collapsing. He dies shortly after. He is buried in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. He was 26. He had been a tank commander for 8 days. The second Sherman is hit in the right track. The crew abandons it, but rather than fleeing, several members run to Kellner's aid. Fred Ramage captures the moment in a photograph that later appears in Life magazine. In less than a minute, 2 Shermans knocked out, 3 men dead. Bartelborth has revealed his position, and the Pershing is nearby. F Company's commander contacts Sergeant Bob Early. A German tank has knocked out 2 Shermans. Can Eagle 7 take it out? Early decides to look before risking his Pershing. With cameraman Jim Bates, he climbs to a second-floor window. Meanwhile, Bartelborth's Panther has moved forward 100 meters, covering 3 approach routes to the cathedral. It can command the area, but is now more exposed. Just after 2 p.m., Bates and Early spot the Panther side-on, about 120 meters away. Bates recalls, "He told me to stay there, and he would come back in his tank and put the German tank out of commission, and I could photograph it." Early returns to Eagle 7 and briefs his crew. 21-year-old gunner Clarence Smoyer prepares for the most important shot of his life. He has been told not to wait for an order, but to fire as soon as he gets a shot. They fire up the Ford V8 and advance. Inside the Panther, Bartelborth orders his gunner to traverse right, possibly hearing the approaching engine. Life and death for both crews is now down to milliseconds. As the Pershing clears the corner, Bates and Rosamond begin rolling cameras. Hesitation is the deciding factor. As Bartelborth peers through dust at the emerging Pershing, he reportedly calls out, "Don't shoot." He knows Schaefer's Mark IV is nearby. He doesn't recognize the Pershing's silhouette. He believes it may be one of his own tanks. Bartelborth later writes, "We were completely tense, and time seemed to stand still. A tank turned the corner. By the time he realized his mistake, it was too late." The Pershing clears the corner, and without stopping, Clarence Smoyer slams a 90mm round from 110 meters directly into the Panther's side. The armor-piercing shell penetrates the vulnerable flank with devastating effect. Bates ducks at the moment of firing, missing the first impact, but Rosamond films the shot. Bates rises seconds later, capturing the second round, smashing into the Panther. Smoke billows out. Knowing further rounds are coming, Bartelborth abandons his tank, crew following. Bates's 16-second film clip shows the sequence. The turret hatch opens. Bartelborth stands up, the impact hole visible on the Panther's side. The tank commander struggles to roll onto the front deck before dropping to the ground. The radio operator emerges, diving off the deck. The gunner begins emerging. The driver emerges about the same time Smoyer's second round strikes, very likely killing the gunner who has yet to exit. 4 of 5 crew appear in view. Bartelborth, driver Koenig, and 1 other were later taken prisoner. A 4th man died of wounds after escaping. A 5th was likely killed in action. The famous Cologne tank duel is over. 10 seconds, 2 shots, 1 Panther destroyed. For the first time, American tank crews watch footage of one of their machines meeting German heavy armor on equal terms and winning decisively. Pershing reverses, stopping 100 meters away. Bates and Rosamond emerge to join the tank crew. Here, the famous scene is captured. The crew of Eagle 7, Bob Early, Clarence Smoyer, and others, simply glad to be alive. Smoyer reflected years later. "I never went to that tank and looked inside, but they told me all of the crew perished there. I thought about it many, many times. When we were firing, I don't remember seeing them getting out. It always did bother me that they all had to die. I'm happy that some of them did survive. Very happy." The battle for Cologne continues, but the cathedral has been reached. The bridge is destroyed. American infantrymen approach the Rhine's banks. The US First Army has reached the Rhine. The symbolic prize, the cathedral, has been captured, but at what cost? Lieutenant Karl Kellner, 26, tank commander for 8 days. Driver Julian Patrick, 23, outstanding athlete from Kentucky. Assistant gunner Curtis Spear, age unknown. Katharina Esser, 27, caught in crossfire. Michael Delling, approximately 40, killed at the wheel. Hundreds of German soldiers and civilians dead in the streets. A city of 40,000 survivors, traumatized, hungry, waiting to see what occupation brings. Bob Early, Clarence Smoyer, and the men of 3rd Armored eventually go home. So does Gustav Schaefer. So does Wilhelm Bartelborth. Many of their comrades don't. Clarence Smoyer never forgets that day at the cathedral. He returns several times after the war. On one trip in 2013, at age 88, he meets Gustav Schaefer, whom he last saw through his gun sight 68 years before. 2 old men, one American, one German, both teenagers when they fought in Cologne streets. They talk, share memories, try to explain what it was like, the fear, confusion, terrible decisions that determined who lived and died. They talk about Katharina Esser, about whether their bullets killed her, about whether they could have done anything differently. They conclude they could not. In war, in combat's chaos, these things happen. Neither wanted to kill a civilian. Both fired because they were soldiers in situations where hesitation meant death. When researchers show Schaefer footage of the civilian car, he says, "Yes, I immediately realized this could be my sister. Maybe I did that. I hope I was not the one." Smoyer expresses the same. "If I knew it was a lady there, I would not have intentionally shot her. I hope I wasn't the one that did harm." 2 old men trying to make peace with what they did when young. At meeting's end, they shake hands. They leave as friends. It is perhaps the best ending we can hope for from any war story. The Battle of Cologne ended 79 years ago. The men who fought it are nearly all gone. The city they fought over has been reborn. Stand in Cologne today near the cathedral. You can trace paths tanks took on March 6, 1945. The street corner where Early's Pershing encountered Bartelborth's Panther has been rebuilt. Scorch marks are long gone. The cathedral itself, damaged but never destroyed, stands restored, rising above a modern city that rose from ashes. The generation that fought the war is dying. Soon there will be no more veterans to tell stories firsthand. What remains are the images, the footage, the photographs, a Sherman burning, a young woman caught in crossfire, a Panther exploding, crew members emerging from a smoking turret, old men shaking hands, reconciled. These images tell a story, not just of a battle, but of a moment when the world changed. The story of Cologne is about what happens when ordinary people, soldiers and civilians, young and old, German and American, find themselves in situations where survival requires choices they will spend their lives questioning. It is about a city bombed for 3 years, defended by old men and boys, captured by exhausted soldiers who wanted to go home. It is about Katharina Esser, who died in crossfire, Karl Kellner, who commanded a tank for 8 days, Wilhelm Bartelborth, who fought because soldiers do, Gustav Schaefer, who abandoned his tank, technically desertion, practically common sense. It is about Clarence Smoyer, who fired 2 shots that made him famous and spent his life glad some of the German crew survived. Most of all, it is about remembering. Every tank has a crew. Every uniform contains a person. Every war story is ultimately a human story. The 700-year-old cathedral was hit during the war by 12 high-explosive bombs, countless incendiary bombs, and 19 artillery rounds. It suffered extensive damage. Windows blown out, roof torn off, structure shaken, but it never fell. Through 268 air raids, through 3 days of street fighting, through tank duels and artillery barrages, the cathedral stood. Today, it serves as a monument to resilience, to survival, to the idea that some things endure even when everything else falls. We destroy, we rebuild, we remember. And in remembering, we honor both the dead and the living, those who fought, those who suffered, those who survived. As years pass and veterans leave us, it becomes increasingly important to preserve and share their stories. The Battle of Cologne is a story of human courage, of young men who stood when it would have been easier to run, who fought when it would have been safer to surrender. It needs to be told to each new generation so they understand the price of freedom, the cost of victory, the debt we owe to those who came before. As long as we remember what happened in Cologne in March 1945, the legacy lives on. We are the beneficiaries of their courage. We enjoy freedom because they were willing to stand. We live in peace because they were willing to fight. We owe them a debt that can never be fully repaid. But we can honor it by remembering their story, by teaching it to our children, by ensuring their names and deeds are never forgotten. The men who fought at Cologne did not set out to become heroes. They were given missions and did their best. When finally overwhelmed or victorious, they had achieved something remarkable. They proved that ordinary Americans and Germans, when trained and led, are capable of extraordinary accomplishments. The Battle of Cologne is over. The cathedral remains, and that perhaps is reason enough for hope. The cathedral still stands, the city lives again, the enemies became friends. That finally